Welcome to Epic Adventure. Today we have Mr. Terry L. Smith, owner of Washington's and Smith's Paradise Funeral Home. Today we're going to learn about pre-need services and at-need services for our family. And here's your host, Rachel Brown.
As you know, there's no place like paradise. So we're here at Washington and Smith's Paradise Funeral Home, here to get some information on pre-need services as well as at-need services. So you guys come along with me so that we can further educate ourselves on how to take care of our families in the event of deaths or untimely demise. So come on with me and let's go learn a little bit about what we need to do and how we can better be serviced and how we can better serve. All right, we're here today at Washington's and Smith's Paradise Funeral Home, and I'm here with Mr. Terry Smith, the actual owner of Washington and Smith's Paradise Funeral Home. And we're here to talk about several different things. One is going to be the etiquette of coming in and actually getting a pre-need insurance policy. So that in the event that something happens to a loved one, we're prepared prior to it actually happening. The second thing we like to talk about is what an at-need is. When a family member walks in and the need is there, I want to talk about a little in depth about that. And I'd like to talk to you about the services and the responsibility of the funeral home directors when you all are providing service for the families. So we'd like to know a little bit about the etiquette because I'm sure a lot of us just really aren't sure this is not something that we do on a daily basis.
Correct.
Again, we kind of do it on an at-need basis.
Correct.
But there's so many things that we'd like to know and to be educated on. So if you could share some of that information with us from a standpoint of what you need from us and what you'd like to see as a client coming through your door.
Sure. Thank you for having me today and taking time out of your schedule to make us a part of your show. When you hear the term pre-need, also advanced planning, it basically means the same. A family can come in and select their services and while they're alive, and also this is an opportunity for us to honor their wishes. What we do is that we provide them a service where we provide the professional service, the cars, the casket. We can even put items in the contract for the cemetery and flowers and come up with a complete package and price that we can set up a payment plan for them to pay on it each month until it's paid in full. And after that, it's fully enforced and it can be transferred for different funeral homes if it's the wish of the family. But it's very important to let people know that in this document, it's an expression of your wishes. That's why you're making it something personal that you would like. Your color may not be the color that I may, as your family member, select for you, but this is an opportunity to give you the ability to make this personal as possible. It is completely enforceable. The only thing we do is we ask that you let your family members know about this pre-need because sometimes we don't want to talk about death, especially advanced planning, because in our culture, we think it's a taboo. Mm-hmm. But it's best to be prepared than not prepared. And so with the advanced planning and pre-need, basically allow you to make those decisions, make it fully enforceable until the time comes where you may need it. It may be 20 years, maybe 30 years, maybe 50 years, but it gives you peace of mind and your family that everything is taken care of in the event that you pass away.
Wonderful. Now, let me ask this. Based on the contracts that you all write, say I'm in a contract.
Yes.
I've come in and I've done my pre-need, on and so forth. Now, let's just say within the first year, I pass away. Okay. What would happen in the first year that I passed away if I had a pre-need?
And is the pre-need fully funded as in you
No, I was
paid?
making payment plans on it. So
Sure.
I didn't pay it in full yet. So I'm just in year one. It's not paid for, but I started something.
Sure. Now, believe it or not, we offer two types of pre-need.
Okay.
We have what we call day one coverage, that we will cover you at day one, that if once the contract is signed and you made the first premium and we issue the policy for the pre-need, if you were to pass the next day, it's 100% enforceable.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The second one we have what we call a dollar for dollar.
Okay.
What you put in is what you get out.
Okay.
So just say if the enforceable day one coverage, if you were to pass the next day, it would pay 100% of that pre-need policy.
Right. Okay.
Now, the other issue that you're mentioning that if within a year you pass away for the dollar for dollar, you get what you paid into it,
Okay.
but you're responsible for the complete balance.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't look at it that way,
Right.
but you are responsible for the complete balance. And we do inform families about this when they are making the pre-need decision,
Okay.
because we want them to be, very understandable
Right.
on what's going to happen. And we don't want any open questions. We want to make sure all their questions are answered, because this speaks about that person.
Right.
And they may, pass away, and now it's their children or grandchildren's responsibility to enforce it.
Right.
And they have to know exactly what it entails.
Right. So let me ask you this on that. Okay, so say I purchase a dollar for dollar.
Yes.
Okay. I'm only getting in only getting out what I put in.
Correct.
Right. But let me ask this question. Because let's say pre-needs kind of change maybe every year, say there's inflation rates. So casket prices go up, different things. So people change their pre-need pricing. Some do it annually. Well, I know it can only be done annually, but some people actually do it annually. Some people don't do it at all, on and so forth. So let's just say I purchased a $10,000 policy.
Mhm.
I made a down payment or whatever by choice. I put in $1,000, and then I just started paying maybe $50 or $25 or whatever a month thereafter. I'm in year 2. I pass away. Question: if you changed your rates at that time, if I purchased this $10,000 policy, right,
Correct.
on dollar for dollar, am I only having to pay the remaining of the $10,000, or if your prices went up January 1 year, and say now your prices have gone up to say $12,000, now my family is responsible for paying the $12,000. So am I locking in anything is the question. Am I locking myself in if I do day to day or say dollar for dollar?
Yes.
Okay.
When you sign the pre-need agreement, you agree to the prices of the pre-need and the date of that signature.
Awesome.
So what happens is that if it's a $10,000 service and 10 years from now, that same service is $20,000,
Right.
we have to honor the $10,000.
$10,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's the benefit of the pre-need too, is to lock in today's rates, whatever those
Correct.
rates are, because things do change. We don't know what the prices are going to be. So outside of just not having the burden of the family to have to come in and make those decisions, we're locking in pricing. There's a guarantee, and it's already written as to what I wanted in the first place.
That's correct. Give you a perfect example. About 2 months ago, I had a family come in with a pre-need before I did the acquisition of this funeral home, that I did agree to accept the pre-needs of the past funeral homes. They brought in a pre-need from 1983,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and the total funeral was $3,000.
Wow.
And so today's price is between 10 and 13. But
Right.
guess what? I had to honor
You
the
honored that.
$3,000 funeral,
That's
because
wonderful.
that's the thing about a pre-need. You freeze the cost of a service at that time of signature.
Okay. That's wonderful.
Yes.
And it's important. I mean, we talk about insurance, whole life insurance, term life insurance. We talk about all the different insurances that are out there. Again, there are people who are uninsurable.
Correct.
That's realistically speaking, there's people that are uninsurable. But when it comes to funeral home services, when it comes to the type of policies that you all offer, there is nobody that is uninsurable.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We offer all types of insurance, just like you just mentioned. We offer term, whole life, 10, 20 pays.
Okay.
But there are some people do not qualify for any of those.
Right.
And it's left up to the insurance company to determine if they're going to insure them or not. And it boils down to risk,
Right.
And we are in an area now in our lives that we're not as healthy as we used to be,
Right.
not as thin as we used to be. So what comes that or health problems.
Correct.
And so the insurance company determines, hey, I will insure them. Now, I always tell people, get insurance. The younger you are,
Right.
the least expensive it is,
Right.
and you're healthier. But just say you were to walk in and an insurance company does not cover you.
Okay.
Your best bet is to get a pre-need.
Okay.
We have families come in and say, okay, I want to get an insurance policy on my loved one, and they're 84 years old.
Right.
Insurance company is not going to insure you. If they do, the premium is going to be so expensive that you can't afford it.
Right.
So what we do, we encourage them to do a pre-need where they can put those monies aside each month until that day comes. Now, even though the person may be 80 years old, they may live to be 100.
Right.
And if they were to do a $10,000 pre-need policy, that policy is paid off, and they still they're still taken care of at the death when it does happen.
Right. Wonderful. But that's great information because, like I said, a lot of people don't know. And I do and I call it a mistake. Now, I know that there's a lot of vehicles when they try to do preventive care and they say, well, come get tested for this. So come get in the mobile vehicle and we're going to tell you if you have high cholesterol. We're going to tell you if you have cancer. We're going to screen you for whatever these screenings are. And then the person doesn't look at their insurances prior to going to check. And then they go into the mobile whatever for the pre-screening on their job, only to find out that there may be an early detection right there. And at that point, it's too late to get regular insurance, your term and your whole life. However, in those instances, it's still okay to come in and get a pre-need.
Correct. And I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people don't know that insurance companies, they use the medical database. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to insure you if you come in and, you were diagnosed with cancer 3 weeks ago. Right. And now you want to come in and try to do an insurance policy on you. If they do approve it and they do not catch it, it'll be null and void when the cause of death happens because you were diagnosed before the insurance policy. And if you didn't tell the truth on that application, they're not going to honor the face value of that.
Right.
Now, the flip side of healthcare is that it's always best to know.
Right.
If there's something wrong with you because we don't like to go to the doctor.
Right.
Until we are to the point where we can't even walk or sleep. Right. And sometimes that's too late.
Exactly.
So we always encourage people it's okay to get checked out.
Right.
I'd rather know what's going on than not go on.
And I suggest the pre-screening as well. I suggest pre-screening, but I also suggest when they send the flyer out saying they're going to do the pre-screening, that you make sure that you have all your affairs in order before going in, because that's where that lack of knowledge comes in from. When they didn't check, they haven't checked the group insurance on their job, or they don't have any types of insurance in place at that time. They have to understand, if you do get diagnosed with something, these are the things that may happen on the flip side of that.
That's correct. And you mentioned something that's very important about group insurance on your job. We encourage people to get insurance outside of their jobs. Right. Because your job can be here today and gone tomorrow. Exactly. So we often hear, I have insurance on my job, so I have enough to cover you. But what if your job, goes out of business? Right. Now you do not have any insurance. And look at your age, it's going to cost more to insure you compared to if you would have gotten it at a younger age. So we encourage people to get insurance in addition to what's on their job.
Right. Okay. Because whatever premium they purchase it at, that's the premium that they're going to pay throughout the term of that policy.
That's correct.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, good. That's great information. And like I said, it's really, really important for people to get the pre-needs and understand all the ins and outs about the different types of pre-needs, because there's family members that are saying, my family member was paying for this, blah, 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 but they don't understand it wasn't either paid in full or it was paid in full and they don't have to take care of anything because their parents did their due diligence and came in, or the family member did their due diligence and came in and actually handled the affairs for them. So now let's talk about the not so good part about being here, which is the at-need. At the time of death, when that call gets made and that family has to come in here because no pre-need is done, they may or may not have an insurance policy, but now they come stepping through your doors and they say, okay, Mr. Smith, I've just lost a loved one. Where do we go from there? Take me step by step. What do we do?
Sure. What happens is that when someone loses a loved one at need, and I always tell people losing a loved one is really difficult. Mm-hmm. And I know there may be some people in the business don't look at it like that. Mm-hmm. But when you have lost a loved one before, I've lost a mother and 2 sisters, and it's difficult. And we're here to be able to assist people during the most difficult times of their lives. But when you come in to the office for an at-need, that the death has occurred, and you're not insured or there's not a pre-need in place, it's difficult for families. We do the whole funeral arrangements. We do the selection of casket and put everything together in a contract. And even we add the cemetery expenses in it. Okay. What we find out is that once we get to the complete balance, they're faced with the question, what am I to do? Right. How am I going to pay for this? Right. Are there any government programs that help me pay for this? Right. And oftentimes, a lot of them have to, what we call crowdfunding,
Ooh,
to be able to raise money to pay for a person's service.
that's the GoFundMe's and all of those.
Those are the GoFunds for, and the government is not responsible for burying us.
Right.
It's ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to understand that being prepared is so important,
Right.
because when you come in and we're just providing the service,
Right.
just like if you were to go to a department store, they're providing the service as well. We're just providing the service at a fair rate price that agreed upon with us and also the state board of Louisiana. But it's hard to come up with, $10,000
Right.
when you don't have anything.
Right.
And we assist families the best that we can,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to also be fair,
Right.
because it's not fair for me to charge a family who is insured $10,000 for a service
Mm-hmm.
and then charge you $6,000 for the same exact service. It's not fair. We have to be fair with our customers and our families that we serve.
So when I come in on an at-need basis, the decisions I have to make are, if I need family vehicles, what type of casket. So 9 times out of 10, if I don't have insurance, I'm picking the least expensive of anything that I possibly can. I'm doing the bare minimum burials, I guess is what you would call it.
Correct. And that's okay.
Or sometimes are you in situations where, let's be honest, you can't afford to bury the person. You don't have the money. So although you would like to have buried the loved one, you end up having to do a cremation because that's the least expensive of both.
That's
and
correct.
that kind of puts all the family members in a totally different mindset when you're wanting to do a burial, but financially we can't afford it.
And we've, held families, loved ones out for weeks at a time for them to be able to afford to service, because that was their decision.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with cremation.
Right.
It is a legitimate disposition, but a lot of our families do not want cremation.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
still believe here in the South that if Jesus was not cremated,
Right.
they shouldn't be cremated.
Right.
But in the end, they have to make the hard decision that we can't afford to bury.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to cremate.
And you all offer the cremation services as well.
Oh, yes,
Somebody
we-
comes in and wants to have a family member cremated. Let's just say if I'm doing a cremation, can I do a service alongside with a cremation? Is it a different type of service, or how do you do that?
Sure. A lot of people don't know the types of cremation, and there's two. There's a direct cremation,
Which is
which is from the place of death to the crematory, no viewing, and that's a direct cremation. We do offer services with cremation, which we have different varieties of rental caskets that they may choose from, and they can have a complete funeral service
okay.
and cremate afterwards. Only thing that's different is that they don't go to the cemetery to bury a person, but they can still have a funeral program, flowers, limousines if that's what they want to have, and we cremate them afterwards. And it still gives them that closure that they need. That is not final, but we offer that the cremation afterwards and put them in an urn and bring them back to the family once the cremation is complete.
Wonderful. Now, what about the cremains once it's done? What happens?
Well,
How do you all handle that?
once the cremains are done, we give families an option. Some may want them back in the urn.
Okay.
Some may not want them back in an urn.
What
Because,
do you do if they don't want them back in it?
well, we have the cremation box that we, once the cremation is done, that the cremains are in,
Okay.
and we just wrap it nicely and give it to the family.
Okay.
Some of them prefer that way because they're going to scatter later on, scatter the remains over the person's favorite lake or property or something like that. Now, what we also do, we do cremation jewelry, where we actually have cremains and we place them in jewelry where people can wear around their neck, around their wrists.
Oh,
We can even turn those cremains into diamonds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the person can be with you all the time.
Oh, wonderful. So I didn't know that. I
Yes,
didn't know that.
earrings, we do it all.
Well, I don't think I want to wear somebody on my ear, but
Well, but it's a weird disposition that some people they like, and I say probably 90% of the people that we perform cremation services with always select cremation jewelry,
oh, wow.
and we do it all here. We have the machines here to do the cremation jewelry to put the ashes in.
Now, let's just say, because you know me, I'm going to think out of the box here. What if I like the jewelry?
Okay.
But I don't want cremains in it. Let's just say I want a piece of my family's garment.
Sure.
Can that go inside of whatever they're buried in?
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be the cremains placed in there. It could be if I wanted a piece of the garment that they're buried in there for sale, who I'm not going to wear, since what is cremains.
Well, but once the service is complete, they've chosen a service with cremation. Once it's complete, we have family members ask for part of the garments.
Okay.
Plaits, their hair, dreadlocks, and we offer that to them. Yes.
Okay. Now, can you put that in the jewelry?
No, ma'am, unless they're cremated.
Only the cremains can
only the cremains can go into the jewelry.
Okay, but you are allowed to get a piece of if you want it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just asked because I've been in a situation where somebody wanted, a piece of the garment that the person was wearing before they.
Yes, ma'am. Well, like I say, it's just a service that we're providing. Whatever they want, we make it happen for them, as long as it's legal,
right,
and ethically acceptable.
Now let's talk about that. That's really, really important because not too many people know about how funeral services work. Okay, we normally just come to a funeral, the insides, what you all do and how you all do it. We don't really know the terminology and all that.
Sure.
So I have heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are instances where, say, 2 or 3 family members are trying to make a decision for a family member who didn't leave a will. They don't know where they want to be buried. Different family members get on the phone. One person calls this funeral home, and another family has already called another funeral home. Okay?
Okay.
Now, let's just say the body went to funeral home A, but the other part of the family wanted the funeral to go, wanted the funeral home B to handle the affairs.
Sure.
So now you've got to get the body from one place to the next. How do you all handle that, especially when you're dealing with families who are in grieving situations and they're trying to all make decisions because, it's probably the older sister, the older brother that made this decision and the younger brother or sister made this decision. How do you guys go about working with the families in those types of situations when it's that type of friction going on? And then how do you work with the other funeral homes in getting that body transferred to where it needs to go?
Sure. That's a great question because a lot of people do not know that process. But we follow the law.
Okay.
This is what the law says. The next of kin is in charge of disposition of their loved one.
Next of kin means the oldest.
If it's children, the eldest child is responsible.
Yeah.
Even if that child is adopted, they're still considered the eldest child if they're oldest of all the rest of the siblings.
Oh, wow.
So that's by law who's in charge of the final disposition. So just say the little brother decides to send them their loved one to funeral home A.
Right.
And the eldest decided on us.
Right.
The eldest person is in charge. So what we do, we call the funeral home A and advise them that the eldest person has selected our funeral home. So we encourage the family to take care of the expenses at funeral home A, which is what we call the transfer of remains fee. And if they did authorize embalming, we ask them to take it over there at funeral home A as well. Or we can transfer it all here and put it on one contract, and we'll write a check to funeral home A for their services.
Okay. So it's respectfully done between the funeral home services.
Respectfully done.
In most cases.
In most cases, but there are some cases where, I hate to say it, that it can get downright dirty.
Okay.
And we don't ever go that way because, this is someone's loved one.
Right.
And even though it's considered quasi-property, it's still someone's loved one. So we're not going to hold them for ransom.
Right.
Saying if you don't pay me our money, we're not going to release them. We don't do that. I've never had to get the state board involved in a situation like that my entire career. But there are instances where the Louisiana State Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors have to get involved if something can be resolved.
Oh, wow.
And for the record, no funeral home can hold a person's loved ones for ransom.
Okay.
That I'm not going to release them until you come and pay me my money.
Right, exactly.
Can't do that by law.
Okay. Now, let me ask this. You know how they say, like, attorneys sometimes, a new attorney, they kind of see an accident and they run after the accident, because they want to be the attorney on that case, right? So when it comes to funeral home services, what are the rules of engagement when it comes to a funeral home contacting a family member because maybe their loved one passed away? I mean, is that something that can be done? Is it considered ethical, unethical, or how does that really work if they're just kind of, maybe they've got friends at the mortuary or wherever, and somebody's calling going, hey, so-and-so passed away. But even though that's not where you want your family to go, but they make a call to the family, and all of a sudden,
Before I moved to Shreveport, Belcher area as a mortician, I worked in Houston, Texas. But I never experienced solicitation, is what we call it, until I came to Shreveport.
Oh, wow.
That's what it's called, solicitation.
Solicitation.
And for the record, solicitation is illegal. No one can call your home.
Okay.
We call it asking for the garments of Jesus.
Right.
No one can call your home.
Right.
No one can send your inbox through social media. No one can text you asking to handle the service of your loved one.
Or show up at the hospital.
No, they can't.
Just randomly.
And I've experienced myself where a family chose our funeral home, but their loved one was sent to another funeral home by the place of death.
Oh, wow.
And that nurse ended up getting terminated and losing their license as a nurse.
Oh, wow.
Because the investigation ended up being that she was working for certain funeral homes, receiving a kickback, and she lost her license over kickback, and it's unethical. And I always tell my staff, integrity is the key.
Right.
It's always right to do the right thing.
Right.
And it's easy to do.
Right.
But
That's true.
I even give my family members a letter to take home with them that talks to them about solicitation, that they're going to maybe funeral home that will call them, stating that they can do it for cheaper, they can do more, just to get their loved ones in the door.
Right.
And it's unethical.
Okay.
And it's illegal, but it happens. We all know it happens in this business.
Right.
And we see it right before our eyes.
Okay.
But what happens the most is it's unlicensed people who are doing it.
Okay.
Because an unlicensed person does not fall under the jurisdiction of the state board. Only licensed people.
Okay.
But we're going to work on trying to get that changed, because if you're representing my establishment
Right.
and you're doing
You
those
should
things,
fall under all the
you should follow
guidelines.
the
Right.
rules and guidelines of that facility.
Right.
But we see it a lot, being honest with you, but it's not the right thing. I've never done it before because, whatever a family selects,
Right.
that's what they select.
And it's about the dignity of the family member in the burial. It's not all about pump and status. It's not all about what's the cheapest. It's about doing the right thing all the time.
That's correct.
Because it's supposed to be, it's really supposed to be a celebratory event,
That's
in
correct.
all honesty, but it should always be done with integrity. And so do you teach classes to your employees? Are these conversations that you have with your employees when you hire them on to say, okay, these are the do's and the don'ts that don't happen here, and these are the things that will happen to you if you get caught doing these things?
Yes, ma'am. What I do is I have a file in my office, probably 30 applications and resumes. I never hired them
Wow.
because I believe a person's character is more than anything there is,
Okay.
and their honesty, integrity.
Right.
I hire people I know
Mhm.
who's going to do the right thing,
Mhm.
and people I know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I know it sounds weird, but I just don't hire someone from another funeral home that are no longer employed there,
Right.
want to come over here. I look at their resume,
Mhm.
but I like to just stick with the people that I know that's going to do the right thing.
Mhm.
And when there's articles in the newspaper about unethical practices of funeral homes,
Mhm.
I always send them to my employees in a group text
Right. So they can
saying,
see.
this is what happens when you do the
Right.
wrong thing.
I don't understand why people don't understand that everything that you do, they're going to say something. People are going to tell.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't matter. People are going to tell. People are going to see it. They're working with you today and everything's great, but tomorrow they're going to tell all of your business and their business too. So, when it comes to this type of field, this industry, I know ethics is very, very important. The dignity of the people that you serve is very important. I talk about like the family member that comes in here and they make their own decision.
Mhm.
And most of our elders don't want to share the information that they have with you.
No.
They won't go home and all they say is, I've got it taken care of. Don't worry about it. I have it taken care of, on and so forth. What would you suggest to them? And do you say something to them about sharing the information? Because it's so hard. I understand the purpose of the pre-need is I'm going to make the plan so that my family doesn't have to. At the time of my demise, you already have the information at the funeral home. So all my family has to do is know that they're going to be picked up at 11 o'clock on Saturday, right? Because I've
Correct.
taken care of everything else.
Correct.
Okay. This is the thing. all the things that happen, how do I know that you're doing exactly and giving my mother, my brother, my sister, my cousin, whomever, everything they asked for in that funeral, in that contract? How do I know that all of those things are really transpiring? How do I know that you didn't cut corners this way or cut corners this way in order to save a little money?
Okay. Let me answer the first question
Sure.
you asked first. When your loved ones say, I got it all taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
ask them to let me see it.
Okay.
And we find out in our elders,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the age group from like 67 and above,
Right.
they don't want to show you what they have.
At all. Right.
What we find out is
Mm-hmm.
that when they don't share the information and the time comes to where they pass away,
Mm-hmm.
they may only have $500.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But they've had policies since 1972 where $500 policies would have buried you back then.
Right.
But if they would have done a pre-need with that policy,
Right. It would have been different.
that's
It would
correct.
have been different.
And back then they had cloth covered caskets.
Right.
We have to honor the same thing. The second part of that question, part A of that, I want everybody to know that when your loved ones say the military is going to bury me,
Yeah, I've heard that.
that is not true.
Right.
The military is only required to give you a burial space in the VA cemetery
Mhm.
and a headstone with a flag.
Has nothing to do with professional services, has nothing to do with the repast, it has nothing to do with the funeral home, the casket, any of that.
None of that.
Okay.
The only way the military buries you, per se, if you're down active duty, but they really don't do it then either. They do the services, professional services at one of the morgues in that maybe like the Air Force, they usually do most of your mortuary.
Mhm.
So it's either at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware or at Hickam in Hawaii.
Okay.
Or they have contract facilities that do the embalming. Then they transfer them to a funeral home of their choice. That's all they would do for active duty people, because the active duty, you know, you have your insurance.
Right, you have the SGLI.
That's correct. They would take care of that, and which we give $100,000 immediate assistance,
Right.
military to the next of kin. So when you hear your uncle or your aunt say that the service or the army is going to bury me, don't believe it,
Okay.
because that's not true.
Okay.
You said about a pre-need, how do we present to the families in that we don't cut corners?
Right.
I have a copy of the pre-need
Mm-hmm.
with the signature on it.
Okay.
And if the next of kin does not have one,
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a copy on the spot.
Okay. Okay.
We sit down
Mhm.
and we go line by line.
Okay. And you do that at the point that they're bringing in the clothes and you're doing the preparation for the funeral to happen.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I'll let them know what it entails and what it doesn't entail.
Now, let's just say hypothetically, I see what she put in there, but I want to change something or I want to add something.
That's sticky
Okay.
because don't forget we enforced a contract that we will honor everything in that contract.
Okay.
Now, when you want to start making changes, some funeral homes may say, no, if you make a change, you void the original contract.
Oh,
And therefore, you have to charge at today's prices compared to back then when they made the pre-arrangement.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but, you know, if a family wants to make a small tweak with me, I'll allow them to do it.
Okay.
Because I've had several where, you know, grandma wanted a certain casket, but grandma got heavier in life.
Right.
She can no longer use that casket. So
Right.
we have to put in another casket and just have the family pay the difference
Okay.
from what the
Or
pre-need
if I wanted additional flowers, if she had the casket spray and I just decide that, you know, I like the casket spray she's chosen, but maybe I want more flowers or whatever, those things that a family member can come in there and add,
That's correct.
you know, and pay for in addition to.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, just know that when it comes to a prearranged contract,
Mhm.
you have secured items
Okay.
and unsecured items.
And what are my unsecured items? What would that be?
Your unsecured items will be police escorts,
Okay.
taxes, because Uncle Sam doesn't want you to pre-need his taxes. He wants the tax rate at the time of death.
Okay.
Maybe cemetery items. And for my funeral home, cemetery items not secure because we don't own a cemetery.
Right. Okay.
So therefore, we can put monies into the,
Aside for that.
yes,
Okay.
but let families know in the unsecured section that, you know, at the time of death, that's where the price will be. And just say they put $1,200 in there for the cemetery and the pre-need, but at the time of death, the cemetery charges may be $1,600.
Right.
So therefore, there's a $400 difference.
Okay.
So they would have to come up with the additional $400 to equal the
cemetery
$1,600.
cost.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. So there's a couple of adjustments, but the information is really, really good because people don't know, like this is something we do every day. We only experience it, unfortunately, when something actually happens. So do you have classes? Do you go to churches? Do you go to
Yes.
different places and try to explain to people what the actual process is? Because I know that the pastors play a big role on where people get buried,
That's good.
and even with that being said, that's another thing that I want to ask about because I'm just curious because I just am nosy and curious. When it comes to the pastors, the family member can leave monies aside for the pastor. Just say I've been going to this church for 20 years.
Yes.
And in my mind, I'm going, because you're my pastor, you're going to automatically do my eulogy or what have you.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
I can opt to leave money in my pre-need or whatever to pay for the pastor.
Yes, you may.
Let's just say I don't or I didn't.
Okay.
Okay. Is that an expense that the funeral home would incur? Or like, do pastors actually charge you all for a eulogy for a funeral that they may do? Or is that optional? Or do you give a gift if he does it? Or how does that normally work? Or is that something you all just don't deal with?
We don't deal with it
Okay.
to a sense. Just remember that we're providing a service.
Okay.
So we always ask the family, would you like to leave an honorarium?
Okay. So
For the
that's
pastor.
asked at the pre-need
Pre-need
stage
and at need.
and at need stage. Okay.
If they say no,
Uh-huh.
and we have to just say, okay.
Okay.
Now, if the pastor comes to us and saying, you owe me for doing the service,
Mhm.
and I would just let them know that the family chose not to leave an honorarium for you, to just speak with the family.
Okay.
Because the funeral home,
Speak to them direct about
Yes.
it. Okay. So that's not something that's attached to something that the funeral homes actually do.
no. Now,
So if they do it, they may do it as a courtesy, if they do it.
correct. Now,
Okay.
we do have ministers on staff, chaplains on staff,
Okay.
that if a family member, does not have a minister
Right.
to do the service,
Okay.
we have them on staff, and they leave a gratuity for them.
Okay.
Because what we're seeing in this new trend is
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people are not church goers,
Right. Right.
and that's why we have a large chapel to be able to accommodate people. And they would just, opt for a minister on staff to do some words, and that's it.
Okay.
Now, I think the days where the pastor would come in and do your service, preaching for free,
Right.
those are very few right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Because some of them charge, big money
Okay.
to even do a service for their loved one. I've seen as high as $1,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
to do for their church members. But we see the trend.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So those are questions that people can ask when they come in,
Correct.
just to make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed.
That's correct.
Okay.
And in a pre-need contract, and I always encourage people, especially if you're a member of a church, it's okay to leave a gratuity for the pastor,
Mm-hmm.
and also leave a gratuity for your church.
Wow.
We can put that in the unsecured section, because I know that when it's my time, I have, in my will,
Right.
that 10% of my insurance policies
Mm-hmm.
goes to the church that I
Goes to the
attend.
church.
Yeah.
That's what. So you're leaving an endowment.
That's what I'm doing.
Wonderful. And a lot of people don't know that they're able to do that though. But that's good for people to know that you can do that you can set that money aside, and actually you can pre-need that as well.
Correct.
Since that money is actually there.
Correct.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Now, is there anything else that you would like to share that we don't know that we might need to know?
The key in your family is you have to prearrange
Okay.
and advance planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this may come out wrong, but I'm let you have it the way I
Like,
have.
it's okay.
It cuts down on confusion.
Yes.
You may say that your loved one is going to do the right thing
Mm-hmm.
when you close your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how close they are.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time they won't.
That's right. If things change, we've all seen that.
I've seen death bring out the worst of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We thinking that death's supposed to bring us together.
Together, right.
I've seen it where it just tear up the family.
based on just those decisions that the person could have made for themselves.
And we encourage people to just make that decision. Just take that 15 or 20 minutes. That's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And take care of your business and get it in order. So the people that are left behind don't have to do it for you.
Right.
You've put your wishes in writing.
Mm-hmm.
We will try to ensure that they honor your wishes.
Right.
But when you put your wishes in writing, it cuts down on the confusion.
Right.
And all we can say is, listen, Daddy put this in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And let's honor that.
Right.
I've seen it
Both ways.
where they have to go to court
Wow.
with a disagreement. And we have to hold their loved one until a judge makes a decision. A person who knows nothing about your loved one
Right.
or your family
Right.
has to make a decision
For
that's in
your
the best
family.
interest of your family.
Wow.
Now you incurred another expense of having attorneys on
Mhm.
both sides
Mm-hmm.
that's taken away for the estate, the person left behind.
Wow.
Also encourage people, I call it the holiday season conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to your loved ones about what you have.
Mm-hmm.
During a Thanksgiving table, let's talk. Anybody here does not have insurance?
Right. Or the family reunion.
Yes, because this is the time to know.
Right. Right.
I never forget when my dad, it was around Thanksgiving, he told the family he wants to be cremated.
Mm-hmm.
I had some siblings were not in agreement with that. I had to say, wait, that's what his wish is.
Right.
So we're going to honor his wish.
Right.
And he told us that whatever money is left over,
Mm-hmm.
it goes to his grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
So that kicks all of us out. And we're okay with that.
Right. Right.
Those that were not had to be okay with
Right.
it because
Exactly.
that's,
Because he said it.
that's his wish.
Right.
And that's what we have to honor. When someone passes away,
Mhm.
the final disposition is the last thing you can ever do for them.
Right. That's true.
If you don't have the funds, make sure you talk to your funeral director
Mhm.
to be able to assist you the best they can.
Okay.
Don't leave your loved one at the funeral and never come back.
Mm.
It happens.
Wow.
It happens to the point where it's a lengthy process.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had one or two situations where we held the loved one for 5 to 6 months, called the family each day, they wouldn't answer. So I had to go to the judge
Mm-hmm.
and a coroner,
Mm-hmm.
and the coroner gave us the permission to do a cremation
Wow.
because the family left their loved one behind
Right.
and would not step up to the plate.
Completely overwhelmed, not knowing what to do, so you do nothing.
Correct. And
Okay.
and we always say this, and some people take it personal, but you've worked all your life,
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing you should be able to take care of is your final expense and your final disposition.
And that's biblical too.
Yes,
That a man should be able to bury himself.
that's correct. And it's all about priorities.
Mm-hmm.
What we can spend each month on a pre-need, we spending more than that on cell phone bills,
True.
cable TV,
True.
jewelry.
True. And I guess because a lot of people, this isn't something that they go to look for. This is not something that, and we've got to make it a priority again, like it was for our grandparents and great grandparents. It stopped kind of being a priority, especially when GoFundMe accounts came about.
Mhm.
Now, and that's one question I want to ask too about the GoFundMe account. When there's a GoFundMe account and somebody's, we're burying whoever, whatever, and that money's going into that GoFundMe account, who actually controls that money? And is that money actually going to the funeral home? Because let's just say, the GoFundMe is, the funeral's $10,000. Okay, you've got $30,000 in the GoFundMe account now. What happens? Where does it go? So people need to know when they're funding, what actually happens with that money when it's all said and done and those expenses are paid. Is that money set up at a funeral home? Once they reach that point, you can say, hey, look, this is taken care of. The goal has been met.
The GoFundMe funds
Mm-hmm.
go to the person or persons
Mm-hmm.
that established the account.
Oh,
It's left up to them to pay the funeral home or not if they choose to.
So it may or may not come to you.
Correct.
Okay.
We had 2 scenarios where family did create GoFundMe. The money never did come to the funeral home. Yes.
Oh, wow.
That person took the money. But it reminds me of beneficiaries with life insurance policies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not required for the beneficiary to bury you.
Mm-hmm. They don't have to.
They don't have to.
Right.
They can just say, I'm the beneficiary. I'm not giving anything toward the funeral.
especially in situations where maybe it's a husband and wife and they've divorced and they forgot each other were on each other's policies. Now one's deceased. They're like, I may be the beneficiary, but we weren't married. We divorced. I forgot I was on his or her job insurance.
Well, you'll be surprised. I say probably 50%, maybe 60% people who come here with insurance don't even know who the beneficiary is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And a lot of times the beneficiary is deceased.
Which means you have to do what then?
You have to find the heirs.
And then you have to pay heirs equally.
Exactly. And just remember,
Wow.
insurance is not designed. That's why I always tell people about prearranging, pay for it while you're living. Because insurance is not designed to bury you, which it can.
Right.
It's designed to put your life together after the death.
After the death. Right.
Now, if you're my spouse and I leave you $1 million, that's your $1 million.
Right. So I don't have to bury you.
You don't have to.
I mean, I would out as a courtesy because I mean, you left me rich.
That's right. Well, $1 million is not rich in today's time. $1 million is just $1 million after they death taxed.
Better than I was.
Yeah, but it's designed to put your life together because my income is no longer.
Right.
So it's designed to put your life back together where you don't have to worry about, okay, I can go ahead and pay off the mortgage now.
Right.
I can go ahead and pay off the cars and just live off his retirement and
I
Social
can keep the
Security.
kids in school, and I can do all the things
That's correct.
to maintain my lifestyle.
That's correct.
Whereas the pre-need is specifically, this is a burial. It's for these specific reasons. I've paid for the casket. I've paid for the service. I've paid for all those things that pertain to you putting me in the ground.
That's correct.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
and it's hard in our culture to accept that. Other cultures, I remember we transferred a person from a funeral home that was non-Black. And the first thing he said is, do you have what company the pre-need is with? Because the person was like 60-some years old. I'm like, no, they don't have a pre-need. What do you mean they don't have a pre-need? They assume that
everybody does it.
has a pre-need, but it's not so.
And it's a lack of education because all we hear is life insurance, and
Burial insurance.
burial. Yeah, that there's no such thing as like it's not burial. Like that is not a name of an insurance policy. You know, but nobody knows that because that's what they're just accustomed to hearing. And a lot of it has to do with education.
That's correct.
It really, really has to do with education. So, you know, once again, you have enlightened me and you've shared some great information about the ins and the outs, the do's and don'ts, what we should do, what we need to know, so that we can better service one another. Because it's really, really important that we push the pre-need to everybody we know.
That's
you know, not just a regular life insurance policy, but both.
Correct.
Take care of the pre-need, get a regular life insurance policy. So it's important that, one, that people know what types of insurances are available to them. And then also knowing that a company like yourself, your funeral home, the people that you have here are licensed insurance agents who can help them step by step get something that's affordable. And one thing that I can commend you all on, and one thing I love about your company, is the fact that there is something for everybody.
That's correct.
Nobody gets left behind. If there's something that you want, you're going to make sure that it does get taken care of. And that's a great thing because some people feel like, I can't afford, I don't have, you don't tell people no, you tell them how.
That's correct.
How to make it happen. You know, so I have much respect for you all for doing that and taking your time with families to let them know what's in their best interest and how to get it done. And I especially love the fact that you do everything with honor and dignity. And you do it from the time we walk through the door to the time the family leaves here. So,
and we continue it after.
And after.
The service.
Months after.
Because that's when the family needs you the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's wonderful. We certainly thank you for your time. Thank you for your education.
Thank you for allowing us to come in.
Like I said, this is a beautiful place.
Thank you.
A beautiful place. And you don't want to come hang out, but well, you can come here and get your needs met.
Believe it or not, a lot of people do come to hang out.
Just to come hang out.
Because, you know, the way the funeral home is set up, it doesn't feel like a funeral home.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel like a funeral home, and it really doesn't look like a funeral home. It's very classy. So everybody get an opportunity to kind of see exactly what you all have to offer. And I hope that when they select a funeral home of choice, that they choose your funeral home, Washington and Smith's Paradise Funeral Home, for their family members, because there's so much to offer. And again, take the time to come out and experience what they have to offer. Meet the families here before you need the family.
That's right.
So
that's what we say.
we thank you guys so much. And again, we'll continue on.
Thank you.
Thank you.